My study is to study the white-to-white measurements using 4 devices and how to determine the size of ICL by measuring the post-operative wall. So the star ICL V4 was first FDA approved in 2005 and historic version was approved in 2018. The current version is ICL V4C, which comes with a central 0.36 mm hole which allows the aqueous to circulate naturally and therefore it reduces the risk of percolate block. So for ICL sizing, several parameters have been investigated like ciliary sulcus to sulcus distance, crystalline length rise, but white to white remains the easiest and most widely used. The ICL comes in 4 different sizes for myopia. So the background of the study was that white to white measurement is an important step in ICL sizing and it is also required by the online calculator of the manufacturer, which in turn dictates the wall. But different devices provide different white to white measurements, so it's very difficult to choose which value we have to use. So our study was to obtain white to white measurements from pentacam, eye trace, lens star and digital caliper, and its effect in determining the correct size of ICL by measuring the post-operative wall size using OCT. So it was a retrospective cross-sectional study where we used 98 eyes of myopic patients who underwent ICL implantation. After thorough pre-op assessment, white to white was measured on different devices and compared with the caliper white to white. The caliper white to white served as the baseline. Measurement obtained by the caliper was selected as the final selection for ICL sizing. Post-operative wall was measured using OCT after 1 month. So the result of the study was that mean white to white measurement varied significantly between these devices. The range of digital caliper white to white varied from 10.8 to 12.6 mm with the mean of 11.6 mm, and it was most comparable with pentacam mean white to white of 11.84 mm. While the lens star had the largest mean white to white of 12.05 mm and iTrace had the smallest mean white to white of 11.29 mm. In pairwise comparison also we can see that the mean difference was the smallest between the pentacam and the caliper and the largest between the caliper and the lens star. So coming to the bland ointment analysis between the pentacam and caliper on white to white, it shows a mean difference of 0.18 mm and limits of agreement of minus 0.46 and a high correlation coefficient of 0.693. This implies a very good agreement. But between caliper versus lens star, it shows a very high correlation of 0.807 but a very high systemic bias of minus 0.38. Again, among the 3 pairwise comparison, we can see that the pentacam and the caliper had the lowest systemic bias of only 0.18 and had most of the data points within the limits of agreement. In our study, 65% of eyes achieved walt within 0.25 to 0.75 mm in 1 month, and approximately 10% eyes achieved walt less than 0.25 mm and 25% eyes achieved walt of more than 0.75 mm in a month. The shallowest walt was 0.14 mm and 0.24 mm and the deepest walt was 1.31 mm. So to determine accurate ICL sizing, various near parameters have been studied like sulcus to sulcus using UBM, crystalline lens rise using ASOCT, but manual white to white using digital caliper still remains the gold standard. The major dilemma faced is which one of these devices can provide data that would result in ideal post-operative wall. In the beginning, when STAR recommended white to white using OpScan 2 for ICL sizing, but it is no longer available, so the newer devices are being used now. Previous studies similar to ours was by Bomiston et al. They used caliper, OpScan 2 and Oilmaster 500 and found that the measurement by caliper was examiner dependent and it varied significantly. They also observed that mean white to white with Oilmaster was higher than OpScan white to white. In our study, the pentacam white to white yielded an ICL size similar to caliper in almost 86.66% of eyes, while the lens star and iTrace yielded an ICL similar in 71% and 66% eyes respectively. Post-operatively, the caliper and the pentacam white to white yielded higher percentage of eyes with desired walt. Purely using lens star or iTrace data would likely recommend a larger or smaller ICL size, which may lead to undesirable high and small walt respectively. So to conclude, white to white measured by the 4 devices varied significantly, which led us to conclude that white to white measurements from these devices were not interchangeable. We tried to determine which of these devices had the highest likelihood of measuring white to white that can calculate ICL size, which would result in desired walt range. If we consider manual measurement by digital caliper as the baseline, then white to white measured by pentacam comes closest to it as compared to the other newer devices to calculate ICL size, and this can achieve desired post-operative walt.
So to put a ICL, which method you are using?
Sir, we are using digital caliper, sir, but nowadays we are correlating it with pentacam.
Pentacam is the corporate.
No, sir. Pentacam is just to see that how much like how much difference is there. But we always go with the manual white to white. But because it varies, like if I do or if sir does, so the measurement can differ. And even for the slightest change, the size of the ICL change. Like for 12.1, the size is different. For 12.2, the size is different. So we have to get the baseline. So like it's like measure. But the pentacam one, we do rely. Mostly we rely on the manual measurements of pentacam. Like if there is a function, if we go to the iris configuration and then manually we can measure the white to white. So that is better than the automatic one.
Two eyes के uses बताना, वैसे पूछ रहा हूँ.
किसका सर?
Two eyes के uses.
Two eyes?
मतलब we have a two eyes क्या? इसके uses क्या क्या?
Sir, I didn't.
हाँ बताओ, तुम बताओ.
I did not.
अरे we have a two eyes ने.
हाँ सर,
तो उसके uses क्या क्या?
अच्छा कंपनी हाँ. So fusion के लिए help करता है.
Fusion के लिए.
फिर उसके बाद to see for the temporal and the nasal part.
फिर
coordination के लिए, synopsis के लिए, near vision के लिए दोनों आपकी जरूरत पड़ती है. और सर fusion में mean
और
peripheral distance
और
ब्रेन के अलग उसमें हो जाता है सर.
और
विजन तो नहीं, मतलब एक आँख से भी दिख जाता है बट पेरिफेरली
स्पिरिचुअली तीसरी आँख खोलने के
तो
लिए
तीसरी आँख भी है.
जब दो आँख बंद करते तो एनर्जी यहाँ करती है.
तीसरी
थर्ड आई से क्या फायदा है कि 20 साल बाद जो रिसर्च होने वाली है ना, वो आप डिटेक्ट कर सकते हो. जिसका टाइम ट्रैक मेथड, उसको कहते हैं कॉस्मिक इंटेलिजेंस. क्या कहते हैं?
कॉस्मिक इंटेलिजेंस.
पढ़ा है
सर? लाइक मेडिटेशन में तो पढ़ा है.
हाँ, कॉस्मिक इंटेलिजेंस होती है. ये दो आँखों का यूज तब तक है जब तक हमारी तीसरी आँख खुल जाती है. अगर इस जन्म में नहीं खुली तो नेक्स्ट बर्थ में तो जन्म लेते रहोगे, क्योंकि इस संसार से जाने के लिए तीसरी आँख का यूज है, हाई लेवल पे जाने के लिए. स्पिरिचुअली ऋषिकेश है ना साहब, ठीक है ना. तो ऋषि कौन होते हैं? जिनकी तीसरी आँख खुली होती है, जो तीसरी आँख खोलने के लिए बैठे हैं. ठीक है, चलो आज के लिए इतना काफी है.